Hello, everyone. Whew, this is going to be a fun little video. It's going to be, as you can see, titled Perception versus Perspective. This is something kind of opened up to me more recently, I would say within the past few months. I was caught in one of those deep holes of watching reels on Facebook. And one of the reels was a short little interview with an ex, I believe he was a CIA agent, who worked in the field of like human development, psychological development, which was also kind of also a little bit twisted in using it to psychologically control and manipulate people. And they asked him what was one thing that he's experienced and learned through his career about humanity and psychology that would be the most beneficial for people to understand. And he said simply perception versus perspective. So it's really fascinating, because sometimes I hear these terms used interchangeably, but perception is a limitation. Perception is based on what you, as a unique individual, believes to be your truth based on what your experiences are. So perception is going to be unique to each person. And it's going to be based upon your traumas, your experiences in your childhood, what your unconscious programs are. And this really kind of plays into what makes us more unique in ways. And this is also how two people can look at the same thing, like artwork or listen to music, where one person can love it, the other person can really dislike it. So perception is more limited and it's going to be more conditional. But unfortunately, our perceptions is what causes a lot of dissension between people, especially when you start bringing in different belief structures around religion and the whole concept of right and wrong. So to me, right and wrong is what is based on through perception. So it's going to be limited to a person's experience. Like we don't know what we don't know. Versus perspective is a much higher view of a situation. It's about removing yourself from the limits of your perception and your programs and being able to see a different side to the story, being able to see a different perception. That to me is what really perspective is about. And it's really about being able to pull yourself back and seeing both sides of the coin and not looking at it as right or wrong, as opposed to, like I like to call it, simply looking at something as either love or fear. Love is something that you would like, fear is something that you don't like. But being able to pull yourself out of that limitations of your perception and see the perspective from a higher vantage point really can allow a lot of understanding and potentially even compassion for someone that doesn't have the same perceptions as you. So to me, perceptions are conditional. Perspective is more of an unconditional, looking at it from a broader perspective. So I think ultimately what would help a lot of people, and definitely on a global scale, is if we could view our perceptions through the lens of perspective. So we really want to have our perceptions be the truth in a perspective, which is being able to see both sides without taking it personally or feeling that a person, just because they're different perception than you, creates fear among you, and it creates that dissension. More people have been killed on this planet in the name of God, because my God is better than your God, or my God is different than your God. And that's purely perception. Versus a higher perspective would be, they're all talking about the same creative force. That God creative universal source energy to me is like an ocean. And we as souls are just a drop of that ocean. So that perspective makes things very different, because if the gods that we call our gods, whether you're looking through a Christianity perspective or an Islamic perspective, we're all really talking about the same energy. It's just the lens of the perception that the religion teaches is what creates the differences among us. So really, when it comes to differences in perception, we can look at extreme examples. Murder is an extreme example, and a lot of people would say murder is wrong. But honestly, from a higher perspective, especially when you look at life through a quantum lens, is we all chose, what we wanted to experience in our life. So if two people, two souls agreed to go into experience the I guess, the choice of murder in a lifetime, between those two souls, from their perspective, it's something that they wanted. You know, the limitations of our perception say it's wrong. But really, when it comes to murder, all we really are saying that it's wrong is because we don't want it to happen to us or people that we love, or to even see it happen to anyone in general. But we all have our own unique experiences that we came here to experience, so we can learn from these processes. So we choose to come in to have a limitation of our perceptions, only to be able to see past it so we can see a higher perspective, which creates a lot more of allowance and a lot more compassion. And we may not necessarily agree with what people are choosing to do with their life, but we want to have those same freedoms to be able to choose what we would like to do. So it's a simple little perception versus perspective, but I think it's incredibly profound when we look at the depths of all this, you know, and I think we're evolving as a species to hopefully start to look at things from a higher perspective instead of the limitations of our unique perceptions. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen a little bit about this. Feel free to share, you know, your perceptions and your perspective. And you can also look back at things in your life, you know, to look at things where we may have felt like we were a victim, and to maybe look at it from a higher perspective. And that can really bring in some balance and create some healing in our existence. So we're not holding on to our past traumas out of fear and thinking that they're keeping us safe, versus seeing the purpose for what it is and allowing us to rise above it from a different perspective. So thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. All right. Have a beautiful day.